Welcome back, y'all. Today I've put together a video in regards to mothers of color in the South and their trials and tribulations. This will be part 1 of the stigma associated with black mothers breastfeeding, and we will also demonstrate how to use a breast pump. So sit back and enjoy Ashley's story.
Hey guys, this is Denise again with Baby Go Home Care, and I have a good friend and a co-worker named Ashley, and she was gracious enough to help me. Now this woman I'm in awe of. She has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 children. The oldest?
16.
And the baby?
8 months.
So boy, girls in between. And this woman, when I met her, was pregnant, and every time I see her, she was pregnant. I loved it. But what I loved about that is that I very rarely saw black women pumping or breastfeeding wherever I've worked. And I've only known very few, and in the South, that is a big deal around here. And from 2 years, we were 12%. Now we have 28 to 32% of black women breastfeeding, and definitely breastfeeding or pumping at their employment. And that is why I've asked Ashley to come and talk to us so we can all breastfeed our babies, whatever color we are. So these are going to be some questions that I have researched and talked to my other WIC consultants and my other lactation nurses. So I thought it'd be a good idea to do a video. So here we go. So Ashley, when did you first realize you wanted to breastfeed?
Very young. My sister-in-law had my niece. I was 9 at the time, almost 10, and I saw her. I walked in, she had her to her breast, and she was feeding her, and at that moment I was in awe. Like, I knew then that that's what I wanted to do for my baby. So that was, by 10 years old I knew for sure that I wanted to breastfeed. Sorry.
That's okay.
So, very early.
And how old were you when you decided that? It wasn't like you. But the first time you breastfed your son, how old were you when you started?
When I first breastfed, I was 23.
Okay. So just a young adult, but you decided that's what you were going to do. And this is before she was a nurse, even realized it was good or not. And she told me that her mother did not breastfeed her, but she was supportive. And that is what I'm finding, is that women of color have more difficult with support. Their mamas didn't do it, their aunts didn't do it. It's easier to get formula, but guys, it's not the best by any means. And I've listed, and I will continue to list, all the pros and cons on breastfeeding. But this woman has 6 children, so if she can do it and do it successfully, then we all can do this. So right now, I just tell y'all right now, we already set it up earlier, but she is actually pumping right now while talking to us. And this is the mobile one that she uses, she set it up. So this is what she uses at work. She'll go into the nurse's station and into a patient's room looking like this. So I always say, I guess if you can't breast pump at a labor and delivery unit, you shouldn't be doing it. You can't pump anywhere. Besides your sister-in-law, giving you that in your head, who was your role model, your support, and where did you go to get that support?
Well, I wasn't around anybody else between 10 years old and having my own son. There was no in between. That just stuck with me, and I knew that that's what I wanted to do. When I had my son at the hospital, the nurses were really supportive. They were helpful. It was just the nurses. I didn't have a particular lactation nurse that I remember during that time when I had my son. So by the time I went home, I was pretty well adjusted to breastfeeding and him latching on. They had worked with me quite a bit. So once I went home, it was just my mom and my sister. Neither one of them had breastfed. My sister hadn't even had any kids. So it was just pretty much my mom saying that I'm proud of you. you, I think this is really great with something you're doing. If I had known all the good things that could come from it, I would have done it for y'all. But when I was having y'all, it was discouraged. They gave us a shot to dry our milk up. It wasn't anything that everybody was, raving about then. She said, actually they discouraged her. She said her grandmother was like telling her that when the baby's hungry, your milk will come down, and like she made it kind of almost like an embarrassing thing, not this is something you need to do.
Okay.
Yeah, like they made it to where.
So your grandmother nor your mother
no.
What about any sisters or aunts? Did any of
No.
them? So you and your sister-in-law were really the first people in your family to do that.
Right.
Okay.
And my sister-in-law, she was a mom at 18 graduation night. She was in the hospital having my niece. And I feel like that's young to know this is what you want to do. She did it, but she did it for financial purposes. She said, I know that I'm not going to be able to afford formula. This is the way to go for me.
Right.
So,
and even if you are on WIC, and we'll talk about that, WIC does not give you enough to last that whole month. Maybe 2.5 weeks tops. You will have to have some other supplements. So if you decide to do breastfeeding and formula, and that's the route you want to go, you definitely always want to breastfeed first. But know that WIC will not give everything to you, whether your breast or in bottle feeding. But she did mention to me earlier when she was first learning how, I asked her how she got her first pump and what she thought about that.
I got my pump through the WIC office. Once, at that time, my son is 16, so at that time when I had him, I already was set up with WIC. They had me, once he was born, I had to come in, I think maybe at 2 weeks old, they assist me nursing him and made sure that we were on the right track. And once we were exclusively breastfeeding for a month, then they issued me a breast pump. I was not as successful then because at the time I was only doing the nursing him. So I hadn't started any pumping or anything. So by the time I started pumping before I went back to work, my supply maybe would get an ounce on each side, which was nowhere near as how I've been with my latter children, where I was way successful. But each time it got a little bit better. So my first child, I ended up after 4 months going back to work, trying to pump. I just couldn't. I didn't have an employer that supported me, stopping to go pump. It was hard trying to keep up. My milk supply was down, and at 23, I gave up.
Right.
I gave up. My next child, I was 30 years old. I was working in labor and delivery. I knew more. My knowledge base was way greater by then. I got started pumping initially. I had the preeclampsia, so I was separated from my daughter initially. She had to go to the NICU. I was downstairs on MAG.
That's for high blood pressure is what we give to moms.
Right.
And back then they used to tell us to pump and dump.
Right, and what they did, they said that initially, but one of my consultants at my job said, no, you don't have to do that now. So
I would just remember when I had my son, I was also had high blood pressure.
Well, initially when I first started pumping, they were like, we can just pump and dump. And then she was like, no, don't do it. Research has changed. It's fine, so you can go ahead and give it to her.
And just to let y'all know, guys, pumping and dumping is minimum now. They only do it for very few reasons. So before your doctor says, oh, well, you need to pump and dump, we're going to have, gallbladder surgery in 24 hours. You don't. It is maybe 2-3 hours, and it's not from the anesthesia. It's usually from the antibiotic. So you just want to make sure they give you an antibiotic that your baby can handle through the breast milk. So just be aware of that. There's hardly any reason to pump and dump now.
Yes.
Unless you're drinking alcohol. Then you just need to wait 3 to 4 hours.
I would say be very vocal about what you're doing and what you want to do, and let them know that that's what you're doing. Give me something that is compatible with my breastfeeding.
Right.
I mean, don't sit there and be your own advocate. Open your mouth and say something. And a lot of people feel like they can't, but this is for you and your baby. So speak up.
And we were talking, I know we kind of got off subject, but I do want to mention this. You were telling me one of your children about having to go to the NICU, and that they gave this baby right off the bat, and they knew she wanted to breastfeed, and she had breast milk coming up, so it was on a different floor than Miss NI was versus where she had delivered, and they given this baby formula without ever even asking. So definitely, if you were separated from your child, you need to be adamant. Absolutely no, I will get you some. They are usually on a very strict schedule, and that's what they want. They want them fed, exactly every 3 hours at this much, so they will eventually get to leave the NICU. But like she said, this is your baby. You tell them what you want. You're paying them. Don't forget that is your child.
Right. You make your decisions for your baby. When I was going up to see her, it was their feeding
And this
schedule.
is your second child, right?
Yes, my second child. So that's when I got used to the pumping, and each pumping session, I did it with their feeding times. We're on a every 3 hour schedule. So that's what I did. I pumped prior to me going up to see her. I took the breast milk with her. One instance, the nurse had already taken breast milk that I had pumped for her and poured it over into the bottle. So the portion that she didn't get, it's mixed in with this formula.
Just like wasted.
So it would make me so furious. I wasn't ugly, but I told her, please don't do that. She needs to take the breast milk first and then top her off with the formula, not mix my breast milk in and then we don't know what she's getting. She had gotten used to the fast flow nipple, so she didn't want to nurse from mommy, which at that point, she was little. By the time I brought her home, she wasn't even big as a bag of sugar. She was like 413. So I was fine with her taking my breast milk. I was pumping and she was getting it, and I stayed on a strict schedule of every 3 hours, and at least for that first 2 weeks, I would even get up at night to pump. That's just how dedicated I was.
You set your phone and you knew.
Yes, I knew that's what I wanted to do, and that's what I did. I would give her, pump it and give it to her. So even though it was through a bottle, it didn't matter. She was still getting my breast milk. It wasn't formula she was getting. She was getting my breast milk. So I was okay with that. About a month old, she finally came around. I never stopped trying to introduce her to my breast. It was just that she was comfortable with getting that fast flow. Why do I have to work so hard to get that? It's the same thing. I can get it here much easier, Mom. So she eventually came around, and we did get that bonding time back with her nursing as opposed to me having to pump it. But I still kept up with my pumping schedule. And once I was well established, I backed off to like 4 hours, and then later I spread it out to 6 hours with nursing her in between. I guess about 3 months, my milk supply started to go down because I was pumping less, but I did have quite a bit of store.
Yeah, and so it is pretty much like supply and demand. The
Right.
more you do, the more you get. So it's any type of stimulation. So when you're first breastfeeding, we really don't want you to do a pump, but you can hand express or hand pump similar to what a baby's doing. So you want to mimic that when you're right off the bat. If it's your second, your third, fourth baby, you've got milk coming probably before you deliver your placenta is coming out. So the more you do, the more you will receive. So another little tip is after you finish breastfeeding, you can put that hand pump or machine pump on, wait a few minutes, then put it on, and then see if you can empty out so you can start getting that supply and demand. But
Right. I would say, I don't want to cut you off, but I will say, if you are on a schedule of pumping and you're okay, it's time for me to pump, baby's still sleeping, babies start to, wrestle around, I would feed baby and then pump right after. Your body is going to make milk for your baby, so go ahead and feed the baby, and if it's on your regular pumping schedule and they collide, just pump afterward.
okay,
Yeah.
that's a good. So you mentioned to me the time that you were with your husband or you were with your sister, and you're like, okay, it's time to pump. And it sounded to me like it was like, oh my gosh, it's time, like you would say, I need a cigarette, like I need to pump, I need to pump. And she was
Like, I was bad about it.
looking for places not to smoke, but to set up to pump.
I would almost say a little obsessed with it. Like, it was like, it's 3 o'clock, it's time for me to pump. And my family's like, it's okay. Well, no, it's not okay. I need to pump. My husband had run into the store and I said, do they have a plug? He was like, no, you are not going in the pump. And at the time, and we had Radio Shack, and he pulls in the Radio Shack, and he comes out, I'm not knowing what he's doing. He comes out, he opens his package, it's an adapter plug so I can plug my breast pump in
the car.
And he's like, now, we don't have to worry about you going and whip them things out anywhere. You can pump right here in the car. Because I don't like that at all. But he did what he had to do for me to pump because he knew how serious I was about it, how obsessed I was about it. And once with my second child, and we got a taste of buying the formula. We weren't on WIC. With my son, I had WIC. I was already, working at fast food. But from then on, I was a nurse, so I didn't have WIC. I was, out of pocket. So once I stopped nursing at about 6 months with my daughter, she had maybe like another 2 months of breast milk that was stored up.
Okay.
Because I wasn't doing anything. I completely stopped. I got kind of burnt out on keeping up with the schedule, and once my milk supply had gone down, it's kind of discouraging to see you only pumping like a half an ounce per side. So I completely stopped and started doing formula, and she had started having acid reflux too. So we had to do like the formula, like the adding the rice cereal, and I think we did the Protonics. We tried Raglan, but it didn't really help.
Was this the one that they gave a little bit of formula to at the very beginning, or was this okay?
Mm-hmm. So we just ended up going to I think Infamil AR that finally helps keep her formula, keep it on her stomach.
And just to let y'all know, guys, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but there's a difference between Infamil and Similac. Just to let you know, right now, this is 2019. Similac has for WIC, but if you're needing volume for your child, Similac only has 100 calories and Infamil has 120. So you might want to look into that if you're needing to top off your baby with formula. Just be aware of that if you're needing it for weight gain.
Yeah, so and we were using Infamil. That was like our big thing at work. So I just felt like that's what I was around. That's what I knew more about. So that's what I chose for her. And we got a taste of buying that, and it was not cheap. And we both have decent jobs, but still paying out that money was just like, this is not the way to go.
Just throwing money down the way.
So besides it's being the breast milk being the best way financially and economically, that was not good. That was a lot of money going out. Yeah, it's for my baby, but still, just to see, it was like another bill. So I'm just finding my nipple, and then find the hole, and I already snapped it in the middle. So now I will connect and zip.
There you go.
There we go. And we're ready. So, and I just take this and clip it to the bustier. And I connect. And connect. And this one has auto settings, so once I turn it on, it already has the suction preset, so I put it for me, so then it increases to my suction levels. And it has a timer, so I know how long I've been doing it.
And you like this one for when you're working?
I like this for at work, so I can still be hands-free. I can chart like I need to at work while I'm still pumping. So I have free reign. I can check my cell phone. I can go to the computer. I can do the things that I need to do while I'm pumping.
Thanks again, Ashley, for talking to us today. Ashley has more tips and tricks on breastfeeding, so please check out my channel or subscribe to part 2 and 3 of my interview with Ashley. Until then, good luck, and you've got this.